Welcome back to Tanya in 5. The last few days we've been studying chapter 40. In chapter 39 we established that our intentions with which we do the Torah and mitzvot have the capacity to take those actions to a different world. If we invest love of God and fear of God into our Torah and mitzvahs, then they are elevated to the worlds belonging to that love and fear. But there are intentions in which a person can do a mitzvah, and the mitzvah will then remain stuck here in this world. The first, on the lower level, is one who serves God with a sense of arrogance, does the mitzvah to show off. Then, that's a klippa arrogance that traps the mitzvah in a very lowly state, and one has to do teshuvah. Then there is someone who does Torah and mitzvahs out of routine, no intention for God, no intention antithetical to God. This the Alter Rebbe explained. That mitzvah just remains in this world until the mitzvah is redone and elevated. Now the big question becomes, how is it possible? The mitzvah is a godly act. Torah is godly ideas. We explained in previous chapters that God desires a home in this physical world, and therefore the ultimate is the physical act. So how is it possible that a godly act remains stuck here in this world and doesn't elevate to godliness in some spiritual level? How is that possible? So explains the Alter Rebbe. God, in essence, is everywhere. And as we explained in previous chapters, God must conceal his presence and only allow for a tiny contracted amount of energy to be invested in each world so that it live in accordance with its state of being. The more exposed divine energy is, the higher and more lofty that spiritual world is. Our physical world, in which godliness is completely concealed and completely condensed to the nth degree, is the world that sees itself as completely independent from God, even though in essence it's divine energy animating it. So what happens when a person does a mitzvah? When a person does a mitzvah, one then reveals in that physical act divine desire. God's will is what keeps everything going because God wants it to be. And God's ultimate desire is the fulfillment of a mitzvah. So this act, this physical object with which I did a mitzvah, is now revealing godliness. But if that act is merely physical, then it's true, I've revealed godliness, but I've revealed godliness on such a level that is condensed and contracted to fit in physicality. If I put some spiritual energy into that mitzvah, with love and fear of God, then not only have I revealed godliness in this act, but then I've also expanded the revelation so that it's not just condensed to some physical being, but includes some spiritual life too. As an example, if we had a wall and we were shining a light against the wall, and there was a small little hole going through the wall, but on the other side of the hole there was a veil. So the first thing I got to do is tear off the veil. Now I've revealed some light. There's light coming through the hole, but it's tiny. It's a tiny amount of light. The next thing I have to do is expand the hole, open it a little wider so that more light can come in. That's what the mitzvah is versus the love and fear of God that's invested in the mitzvah. When I do a mitzvah, I peeled off a layer. This object beforehand was not obviously serving God, and now I do a mitzvah, boom, this act, this object is in the service of God's desire. But it remains physical. It remains tiny and condensed godliness. But when I put some love and fear, now I've expanded the hole. I've widened the opening so that more of divine energy can come through because I've added a spiritual dimension to it, expanding this little object not to be physical anymore, even as it expresses godliness, but to be more elevated, and thus revealing godliness on a much more broad manner. In this way we can understand how the Zohar compares the mitzvah to a bird and love and fear of God to wings. A bird without wings, it's still a bird, but doesn't move anywhere. Add some wings and now the bird flies. But wings alone, love and fear of God alone, without the act of a mitzvah, is just wings without a bird that can, navigate this wings to fly somewhere. the takeaway from all of this is, oftentimes we get inspired. We feel a spiritual surge and we want to connect. If we don't act on that inspiration, if we don't do a mitzvah, that's like wings that have no body to be attached to and nowhere to go with it. It's a wasted inspiration. You feel like you want to connect, then go connect. Take all that energy, put it into a mitzvah, and soar and fly in your relationship with God. Looking forward to seeing you when we conclude chapter 41.